Hi, and welcome back to SSON's AP Automation Digital Summit. Naomi Sequel here with the SSON. And I want to thank everyone for joining, and I want to thank TradeShift for sponsoring this session. And we are going to talk about supply chain disruptions, the necessary evil. And joining us today, we have two fantastic speakers. We have Jonathan Laverentz, who's the head of digital innovation for TradeShift, and he focuses on the digital trends that create engaging stories to support the global commercialization, messaging, positioning, and go-to-market strategy of TradeShift products. And we also have Sid Vasily, who is our chairman of the AP Automation Digital Summit. Just before I hand over to them, a couple of reminders. This is going to be an interactive discussion, so we need your support. Please refer to the tab at the bottom of your console, the Q&A tab, and put your questions in there. We're going to address them as we go along. Also, TradeShift has provided some wonderful additional content resources that can be found in the digital gift bag right on your console. So this is the TradeShift Index of Trade Health, and also a one page, on how you can digitize, automate, and grow. And I've also placed a speaker bio, email, and connection to their LinkedIn profile right there on the console. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Jonathan and Sid, for what I know is going to be a great discussion.
Thank you very much, Naomi, and Jonathan. You're more than welcome, and I'm really looking forward to this little conversation between us, because we've had some preliminary chats, and I think it's going to really enlighten folks as to the thought processes and so on going forward. And I'm particularly interested in has supply chain disruption actually participating in a new age of technology and technological innovation, or are we still wedded to yesterday's way of doing things?
That's a great question, Sid, and also, yeah, thank you, Naomi, for the introduction, and Sid, great to talk to you today. Hello, everybody. Leading out with this first question, it actually, it's very interesting, and I'd love to, especially if the audience wants to chime in here across the Q&A by putting in a why or an N. Do you all see that the supply chain disruption has kind of forced its hand on innovation in your organization? Would love to see your feedback on that one, short of putting in a poll here. Yeah, you know what, Sid, I do believe that that supply chain disruption has precipitated this new age. We at TradeShift, and also in some of the research that I've been doing here in the industry, and you may have seen the same thing, it has, like I said, forced our hand towards a better understanding of how to, number one, work with a distributed workforce, number one, and manage a supply chain through a distributed workforce, as well as somewhat rely on these technologies which we took for granted historically. I see that one of the biggest changes we've seen is you have a lot of organizations out there who were raising their hand prior to this disruption and saying, oh yeah, we've gone through digital innovation at our company. We're good. We're prepared. We have an anti-fragile, anti-disruptive supply chain in place now, because we've gone through all of this disruption and we've gone through this digital transformation. But the fact of the matter is, even amongst our clients at TradeShift, when all of this disruption began, we saw and felt almost a clamoring of our clients to really hunker down and really embed themselves into the technologies which we had started to build through their organization. And it's not just TradeShift technologies, but it is that entire upstream and downstream supply chain has had to become more digitally efficient in the way that they transact business, in the way that they transact data, and then really from the logistics standpoint, providing a better a deeper visibility into products, goods, and services across the entire supply chain. So I would say that not only has it caused a new age of technological innovation, I would say that borders on revolution rather than just innovation. It's more revolution, because it has kind of forced everyone to jump a generation of innovation and really start to grapple with what cutting edge and bleeding edge technologies are available to help us be immediately successful. What can we adopt as an organization? I ramble a little bit, but would love to get your perspective on that as well, Sid.
I think that's absolutely right, because I've seen a huge change, a quantum change in accelerated decision making.
Right.
And that's been extraordinary, that I've seen the adoption of new technologies, the ability to provide solution sets that allows remote working, whereas historically 2 years ago that would never have happened. I think that change has been extraordinary, because there's been no choice. Business could not stand still. The world could not stand still. We still required goods and services. We still required, our customers to actually continue working and evolve their processes. And, you think about, how buyers and sellers have digitally transformed their supply chain operations to transact better with each other, purely on the basis that this pernicious disease has actually created that opportunity for extraordinary change.
Yeah. You're right, Sid. And you brought up a really interesting point here about decision making being accelerated. And to the audience, Sid and I were talking about this earlier. How we really do see decision makers, moving from weeks and months to make a decision to hours and days. I haphazardly threw, because, now, unfortunately, sometimes that question is a matter of, are people going to live or die? And, how does this decision have the potential to influence the health of people? I think that if, one of the big things that I've seen a big change in is people starting to care about people again a little bit here. We talk about B2B and B2C very often as the two motions in economy, and I think that potentially this disruption has ushered in a new age of H to H, human to human. We've started to realize that in this new economy, in this new world, we're dealing with humans again. We're no longer dealing with this big organization or this big corporation. I'm dealing with Susan in her home, in what used to be her family room, with her dogs and kids in the background, and we're trying to get things done. And this is that age of getting things done, and with that comes the requirement that you make much more. Your decisions are much more swift. Because it can impact so much more quickly.
And I think you've made a really excellent point with regard to folks, people to people. I think we've become infinitely more mindful and more kind towards folks and helping them along this transitional journey, which has been a quantum leap as opposed to a soft on-ramp. And of course, you're quite right. The fact that we're remote working, and we're still remote working today, how that's going to change and evolve over time is really an interesting proposition. But certainly the mindfulness and kindness towards your fellow human being, I think, has been a real quantum change as far as I can see that. And when you think about it at a business level, when you think about cash optimization strategies and cash preservation strategies, and also buying intelligently and all those sort of things that are really critically important. The fact that now both sellers and buyers can leverage this new technology to actually communicate a humanistic level and ensure that these transactions continue to flow.
Yeah, I agree. Because I kind of go back to one of our clients who's in actually the gaming space, and they had put in system redundancies and organizational redundancies in his team to ensure that they had solvency through a crisis. They built in that crisis management. And they did that through a system of checks and balances within his organization. He talked about it as his organization and his working group. But what was very fascinating was to listen to him change the way he talked about from his organization to started to name names. Because now, instead of this is my accounts payable team who's doing this, now, as I said before, it's Susan, it's Mary, it's Bob, it's Dave, it's Edward, it's Frank, all working together across these technologies. Using in some cases, Tradeshift has a pay technology that allows an end user to collaborate across an entire team to ensure straight through processing of our products. And of POs and invoices. When you start to have that back and forth communication from an accounts payable organization to upstream into your supplier, or downstream into your buyers, that transparency and that collaboration, which comes from a truly digitally native platform, and that digital transaction really starts to allow the human to come through as more of a collaborator in that transaction. It's no longer somebody picking up a piece of paper, checking off the boxes and moving it on to the next thing. It's now, hey, this one came in from so-and-so over at this business. Why don't I ping her real quick and check in too? Got your invoice, or even they get a notification that someone received the invoice and is processing it. So now you're putting faces and names to things in a way you never have before. And the point that I was getting back to here is, all of a sudden he started to recognize all the people in his organization as components of their success, as collaborators to that success. And some of the technologies and things that he put into place didn't work as expected. But when Bob and Mary and Susan and Edward and everyone worked together as a team and collaborated on things, they were able to accelerate the way that their accounts payable division did business and really find a team success from the experience. I really believe that leveraging these growing financial service technologies can really help ensure that businesses stay solvent, because they were in this case they were going about it one way with external technologies and Tradeshift technologies and their internally built solutions, and then the disruption occurred, and they had to take a really strong look at what they originally thought those paths would look like, and quickly beyond evolution, move to that revolution that the technology required and that the disruption required. But they couldn't do that without knowing each other as humans and working with each other. So we've got to remember the humanity in all of this technological change, because we're the ones who actually have the biggest amount of influence and change management over it.
I think you made an absolutely great point when you think about the humanistic elements and the communication between the buyer and the supply chain. Mm-hmm. And everybody's got very, very, very similar issues and challenges between them. And that open communication between the two parties, I think, often solves a lot of the issues, particularly from a cash flow perspective. As you said earlier, I'll settle your invoice because I appreciate the challenges that you face. and so on and so forth. But more importantly, this is what we need as a business. Can you help us with this? Rather than being very dictatorial and so on. So that collaboration element, I think, is really, really important. And I see that technology has played a great leveler across all of these stakeholders in the supply chain, whether it's from a buy side, from a processing side, a supply side, and from a user perspective. That it's actually created a much more level playing field with a tremendous amount of collaboration. And I guess you're seeing that through your customer journeys.
Absolutely, and we're definitely we at TradeShift are definitely seeing the how technology enables this collaboration, and how we have a lot of organizations that are able to take this technology and actually we're able to work with them to improve and embed these technologies remotely, so that they can see that added benefit upstream as well as downstream in their supply chains. And it's interesting because when you start to really think about I talked about evolution versus revolution here. We've talked a lot in AP over the last few years about that change from P2P to S to P. We've gone from procure to pay, and now we're going, source to pay. On the procurement side, it's changing so fundamentally that it's starting to dive in and impact accounts payable at a much more granular level. And we see that the most successful teams now, the most successful organizations, are really finding an alignment between their accounts payable and procurement organizations. They're implementing the tools and the technologies to have that digitally native transaction between the two. So your procurement team, pulls their products together. They get their RFPs, RFQs out there, and the entire process rolls through end to end technologically. So the entire thing stays in a way and works through in a way that every team can touch this digitally without having to throw something over the cubicle, without having to drop something in the post. The most important one of the most important takeaways we've seen from this is the importance of flexibility and scaling in this process as well. And making sure that from these broader organizations who are utilizing technology across procurement and accounts payable, that you've got the flexibility in your provider to be able to kind of like a Lego set, where you put your end-to-end process together like you put Legos together. If you don't like one thing, you pull it out and you put a different one in there, and you create that end-to-end process that works best and most efficiently for your organization. It's that transaction between buyer and seller, which really starts to create that community of success. And I humanity. So
I absolutely agree with you, because there was traditionally there's always been the them and us.
Yeah.
Right. And now it's all about us as a collective and how we solve this issue between us. And we've often finding the alignment of accounts payable and procurement has been difficult historically. Yes. But I think they've been normalized now, and I think that there's a pathway going forward which brings that collaboration at an equal level.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. It allows for kind of a normalization of business process.
Yes.
Technology really empowers on both sides. By creating that relationship or that network, and then evolving that into or creating a revolution from that network into a community of buyers and sellers upstream and downstream. The 1-2 punch of those actually empowers business success of everyone in that entire supply chain, and having that transparency and validation, whether that validation is is based on communication, or whether you're using, technological validation, like blockchain, implementing a blockchain process into the process to ensure that that you are sourcing the correct elements at the top of the supply chain. You've got all of the same elements running through the entire process, that you've got the correct taxation if you have a country that you're balancing country compliance or a clearance model with. By implementing all of these technologies together, and all of the humanity to control it and run it, you're creating not just a synergy between your internal organizations, but you're actually starting to, as I said before, we're going one step further. Your success and your solvency influences the solvency of those direct relationships within your supply chain. And I believe that technology is really changing the way that we validate this, not just from Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's really interesting you talk about blockchain, because we've got a plethora of questions coming through. So we'll try them, weave them into the conversation. And delegates, please be assured that we'll be responding to these afterwards if we don't get to your question during this session. Now, I've got a question here. It's how can blockchain technology help easing the supply chain disruptions which have become pronounced account of the US-China trade war and COVID? What role does it play? And, can you sort of give a description of how blockchain has helped smooth out some of those bumps in the road?
Yeah, that's a great question. I am not the blockchain expert I would like to be.
Nor am I.
No. But what I can say, I will be, like I said, in transparency, I'm not that blockchain expert. We have quite a few blockchain technology experts within the organization right now that are working on the validation of payments and the validation of availability of currencies, and to ensure that the supply chain is supported from and I say from end to end again, so that we're utilizing, and we're looking at newer technologies at TradeShift to blur the lines of payments, so that blockchain ensures the payments are there before they're even necessary. So you're taking that hybridization of a blockchain and AI to inform the purchasing process, so that the concerns of financial solvency, saliency, net terms is all just a foregone conclusion when it comes to the transactions. I see that blockchain will go many steps further than that, as we really uncover the ability to, as I said before, validate the purity of content, of raw materials, as we use blockchain to validate the entire transformation of those goods, of that raw materials, all the way through the good, especially when you think about it from a pharmacological standpoint, a pharma and bio and medicine, biotech sort of a category where purity, high purity is so critical. I see that we're going to be utilizing blockchain to validate product descriptions one step further. Where blockchain can actually help us source the most valid content. Historically, you have to have third parties come in and dive deeper into data lakes to ensure that you've got all of your product and all of your pricing and all of your your sourcing and availability validated. With blockchain, we're going to revolutionize the way that that's done. And I see that is once again going to, and I'm going to go back to the humanity of it. I think that is going to free us up and allow us to become better collaborators on the execution and the usage of blockchain in supply chain, as well as the departure of it into much more of the transactional elements. So I will get someone inherently smarter than I to answer that question a little more effectively. But I do believe that because of the rise of cross-border trade, because of the changes in material sourcing, that blockchain is an inevitable will have an inevitable impact on the way that these goods and information is transferred and validated. So
yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, I mean, I think you are an expert. You've demonstrated your expertise. Thank you very much on that one. But I think from the vendor community perspective, they just want to feel sure there's some assurance of settlement once the goods and services are left, and that blockchain actually validated each step of the process.
Exactly.
And I think that adds to a very significant human dimension element to this piece, where people say, actually, I feel comfortable trading with X, Y, and Z because I know I'm going to get paid. And I think that has a tremendous amount of comfort from a humanistic perspective. We've got another question come through, and it's a very, very simplistic question. How have you managed to implement your tech solutions remotely? Are there any learnings you can share?
Well, yeah, actually, yeah. Just like the technology. I was referring to one of our partners, one of our clients who had done. Who had implemented some of our technology during and before COVID, the one in the gaming industry, the electronic gaming industry. One of the things that we were able to do for him was upgrade all of his systems remotely, so that he could take better advantage of all of those collaborative technologies. And I don't mean to be doing an infomercial or commercial for TradeShift here, but as I was talking about before, the fact that you have a technology for procurement that aligns with the technology for accounts payable, and then upstream technologies to even provide value for sellers and create that digital connection between seller and buyer, and then that all itself can be. There's an element of customer service, of course, involved in some of this, but by building things kind of on the cloud, the big buzzword, the cloud, as TradeShift does, we are able to remotely upgrade, remotely install and improve technology, at least for organizations to work with us. So I don't know if that answers completely, Sandeep, but I'm glad to continue that conversation. Please, guys, feel free to ping me on LinkedIn. Glad to answer these or get the smarter people to answer it for me.
Oh, I think you've demonstrated you're really very, very smart, my friend. And from a pure treasury perspective, when one thinks about the fact that we're managing procurement intelligently, managing payables intelligently, having the third leg of the stool being the settlement process, actually having a rounded solution where everybody can share the information, provides for a much, much better and more holistic relationship. Now, let's have some pearls of wisdom from you right now as we're coming to the close.
Yep. I guess
pearls of wisdom, right?
30 seconds here, maybe.
Well, that's it. That's okay. Why innovations does every business what sort of innovation should they know about? What's coming around the corner? How can they better prepare themselves for future disruptions?
It's such a great question. Gosh. such a great question, and you know me, I'm not short on answer.
No,
But
that's okay. Sid gave you some question there for 30 seconds.
Okay, so sum it all up. Do not overlook technology to be your friend. TradeShift and other organizations out there are creating wonderful technologies that you can embed in your procurement and your accounts payable, your entire treasury organization. I see the innovations are the ones that allow you to remain digitally native through the entire process. So the transaction actually begins digitally. There's never a piece of paper. So the great thing about that is you have the ability to fall within compliance and policy through the entire process and validate it along every step of the way, from buyer through seller, upstream as well as downstream. Look for ways to remove paper from the process. There's a billion out of there. Don't go it alone. Go to somebody like Sid for consulting. Come to TradeShift. Let us talk you through the ways to find that success within your organization, to create a better sense of community between you and your buyers. And I assure you, as collaboration becomes stronger, that will also strengthen your supply chain in the process.
Very, very wise words. Very wise. Sorry to interrupt you. Very, very wise words. You mesmerized me. Thank you so much for that eloquent response.
It was a really good discussion. I encourage everyone to connect with Jonathan for more information. So we are heading into our next session. We're going to hear from Thumbtack. They're going to talk to us about 3 pro tips that they have to modernize AP. To get to that session, there is a green arrow at the bottom of your console. Simply tap that, and it will take you right into the waiting room. And we're going to start at 11:15 a.m. sharp. So see you there. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jonathan. Did a great job, mate. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now.